I'm shocked that it's taken me so long to recognize this major irony in Star Wars movies, the Skywalker saga specifically. Star Wars movies and TV shows have grown exponentially in the nearly 50 years since the franchise began, and in light of Star Wars' upcoming movies and the upcoming Star Wars TV shows, that isn't slowing down anytime soon. In fact, following the sequel trilogy, the Skywalker saga is said to be over, which implies that Star Wars is only going to become so much more expansive and exploratory. Recent additions to Star Wars, such as Andor Season 2, which only just concluded, have already begun that work, taking a step away from the Skywalker family, the Sith, and the Jedi, and doing so quite successfully. Yet, I'm still discovering or realizing new things about the Skywalker saga even as the franchise moves on in some ways. One recent realization in particular caused me to recognize one of the greatest ironies in Star Wars, particularly related to the Skywalker saga's movie titles. The prequel trilogy is the only trilogy without Jedi in one of the titles. Most prequel trilogy titles are actually focused on the dark side. The prequel trilogy is a major anomaly in the Skywalker saga because none of the three movies has Jedi in the title. Although the original and sequel trilogies both have just one title containing the word Jedi each, Return of the Jedi and Star Wars, The Last Jedi, it's still notable that the prequel trilogy stands out in this way. In fact, what makes the prequel trilogy all the more curious is that the movie titles are almost all focused much more heavily on the dark side. Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace references one of Star Wars' most powerful Sith, Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, who actually proves to be the titular Phantom Menace throughout the Star Wars timeline. Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith is another reference to the Sith, in this case Darth Sidious and Darth Vader nearly eradicating the Jedi and taking over the galaxy. Even Star Wars, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones refers to Palpatine's plot. This is especially odd given the focus on the Jedi in the prequel trilogy compared to the other two Skywalker saga trilogies. The prequels were the most focused on the Jedi of all the trilogies. The Jedi are important in all three, but the Jedi Order is only in the prequels. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant in Star Wars. Obviously, the Jedi have been an essential aspect of all 9 Skywalker saga movies. Yet, the prequel trilogy is arguably the most focused on the Jedi of all the Star Wars movies. Yes, Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Master Yoda were the ones who introduced audiences to the Jedi and the Force in the original Star Wars trilogy, but the prequels provided so much more background on and context for the Jedi, specifically with the Jedi Order. In fact, so far, the prequel trilogy comprises the only movies with an active Jedi Order. This makes it even more bizarre that none of the prequel trilogy movie titles really reflect that fact. It's true that the prequels are also focused on the Sith, as it is ultimately the story of Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side, but it's still shocking that no reference to the Jedi, direct or indirect, is among the titles. Interestingly, this is far from the first time Star Wars movie titles, especially in the Skywalker saga, have been called out for some confusing naming choices. Star Wars does have some odd title choices. Some have pointed out that these titles seem misplaced before. The massive nursery full of tubes with clone babies is shown within Tapoca City on Camino Image via Disney+. Even outside this irony with the prequel trilogy movie titles not including any reference to the Jedi while the other two trilogies do, additional oddities with Star Wars movie titles have been commented upon before. Specifically, some have argued that Star Wars movie titles are wrong, so much so that they almost seem scrambled. Examples of this include the fact that Attack of the Clones is applied to the second prequel trilogy movie, in which the Clone Wars kick off, rather than in Revenge of the Sith, in which Order 66 takes place. Likewise, many argue that The Phantom Menace should instead be titled Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, as that is effectively the beginning of Anakin's Star Wars story. While most of this seems to have been said in light-hearted fun, there is something to this commentary and the way in which Star Wars movie titles don't always perfectly capture what that story entails. Evidently, the absence of the word Jedi in any of the Star Wars prequel trilogy movie titles is yet another example.